Hey, September the 25th. Lake levels 915 and about 3.3, about 3 inches. It's come down quite a bit. Been 2 weeks since I did a fishing report, but the water temperature hasn't come down too much. I didn't go out yesterday. I was out the day before, and I was out quite a bit this weekend. But it's right around 80 degrees still. We still need that water to cool down, but the bait's moving in the backs of the creeks. Had a really good day before yesterday down lake. And how we caught most of those fish, I've got a better shallow bite going than I do deeper bite. I'll get into the shallow bite first, but been catching a lot of fish on square bills, like a 1.5 or a 2.5. It depends on how deep of water I'm fishing, but I think this is called a yellow perch, the Strike King 1.5. I really like it. And I like the shad colors too, like the chartreuse sexy shad. But I'll kind of mix it up between a 1.5 and a 2.5. It depends on how deep water I'm fishing. But actually what I'm doing, I'm throwing these, a lot of the places that we would normally throw a whopper plopper, I still haven't got much of a whopper plopper bite going. Even when we start catching them on the square bill, a lot of times I'll pick up a whopper plopper just to see while my customers are throwing the square bills, and I'm throwing that up ahead of them, and it seems like they don't want to, they're not very interested in the whopper plopper yet. You can take that 1.5 or 2.5, get it down a few feet, and the fish have been crushing it. When you get a bite on it, they're not just slapping at it. I mean, they've got the whole bait in their mouths. And, I'm getting, there's not a specific place in the creeks. A lot of it's in the little cuts, but it seems to be where the bottom's a little bit flatter. It can have some shelf rock and some gravel, but the flatter banks seem to be working better for me than the steeper banks. And a lot of the key is having that little bait fish around. We call them little ghost minnows. They're a silver-sided minnow. They're not shad. They're, I don't know, about an inch long. But if you see them in the backs of the creeks or the backs of the pockets or the banks that you're fishing, pretty good chance you're going to get bit. Another thing that's working as well is a small spinner bait. In there shallow, I'm throwing usually about a 3/8 ounce spinner bait. And I like tandem willow blades, 1 nickel, 1 gold. And I'll throw this, even on that crankbait. I'm running that crankbait pretty hard. As soon as it hits the water, I'm cranking it. Every once in a while, I'll pause it, especially if there's a piece of wood or something that I'm bumping off. But, the spinnerbait, I'll run it pretty quick too, but I like to fish it out of sight. If I can see the bait, I'll let it drop down a little bit more in the water column. But, sometimes I'll use a trailer hook, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I will use a little swim bait, like a little rage swimmer or a little Kitech, or even a little grub, a little 4-inch grub for a trailer on there. But the War Eagle spinner baits, they've kind of got a skirt. This isn't a War Eagle, but the War Eagle ones, actually the way their skirts are, I don't think you need a trailer on a lot of them, because here's a War Eagle right here. You'll see the skirt's a little bit longer right there, and this one I've got a trailer hook on. Now, if I'm fishing a tournament or something, I always have a trailer hook on. But a lot of times I'm just messing around. I like to fish it without a trailer hook. Sometimes that trailer hook, if you get up around the brush and around some wood, it will get you hung up some. But also in them creeks, if you get out there in 25, 30 foot of water, I'm starting to see a lot of big gizzard shad. And especially up in the river arms, this will work good. But down lake right now, we've got almost as good a stain in the water as there is up in the river arms. We've had good color for the last 6 or 8 weeks. But it should work, throughout the lake. I know it's working for me a little bit in the river arms. But if I can find them big gizzard shad around the pole timber, out there in the center of them creeks, where it's like 25 to 40 feet deep, I'll either see them on my electronics, or some days you can actually visually see them up on the surface. What I'll do, I'll take anywhere from a 3/4 to 1.25 ounces spinnerbait, depending on how deep I feel the fish are, in that bait or under the bait. and I'll just take and count it down to whatever depth I want to fish it, and I'll just slow roll it. Mainly, most of the time you're slow rolling it through the shad and underneath, because a lot of times the bait is going to be up a little bit higher and the fish are going to be underneath the bait, waiting for a shad or two to drop out. And this can be a real effective way to catch them in the fall, a slow rolling a big spinnerbait. You won't get a lot of bites, but you'll get some good quality bites. As far as the deep bite, to me the fish are so scattered as far as depth. I mean, you could catch them anywhere. The other day we caught them in 22 to 25 feet on a drop shot. And in the same day, we caught them in 50 foot over deeper trees. I'm really not finding any certain magic key depth that the fish seem to be holding at. And it's the same with the bottom baits. But, the drop shot fish, I'm still catching some of them out off of the, flat gravel points. But I'm starting to catch more out of the deeper timber. Some of them in the center of the creeks, which should get stronger. It's a stronger fall into winter pattern. But also, if I need a fish or two, it seems like if I go off the ends of them deep docks out there in front of them cables, the docks might be in 60 to 80 foot of water. I can usually find a couple fish suspended out there. The problem with a lot of the deep fishing, I'm not catching a lot of fish. It's almost like a one and done type deal. I mean, I can catch a couple fish in a spot, then I got to go hit several other spots. That seems to be the deal on my drop shot. On the spinnerbait and crankbait, especially the square bill, usually if you get one bite, you're going to get 2 or 3 bites, and they've all been good quality fish. It's amazing that you'll be in areas where you think, you should be catching largemouth. I've probably been catching about 50% largemouth and about 50% smallmouth on the spinnerbait and crankbaits, back in the creeks. It's amazing how shallow a lot of these smallmouth are. Catching very few spotted bass back there. They're either, blacks or smallmouths. But the quality is really good. And, from one end of the lake to the other, smallmouth, the population has just been incredible here the last 4 or 5 years. It keeps getting better and better. But they seem to be more smallmouth up than there is anything else. And the same with like my jig fish. Doesn't really matter what end of the lake. I am catching some Kentuckies, but more smallmouth on the jigs. And a few different jigs I'm fishing. I'm fishing like a 3/4 ounce ultimate cover jig by 5 fish lures. But I've also been able to catch them on this is a pig sticker called a pig rig. It's a 5/8 ounce, and I've got a Strike King. This is a Zoom Speed Craw on here, but I'll use either a Zoom Speed Craw or Strike King Rage Craw, the big craw. Now, and there's also, there's a lot of different things going on. It seems like I've got a junk fish. I've got 8 to 10 rods on the deck. We'll fish a deep dock and a shallow dock, and then we'll take and fish these jigs out on structure. And the structure fish seem to be about 18 to 25 feet deep as far as on it's called the wobblehead or the pig rig or the 3/4 ounce jig. And a lot of them seem to be around brush or drop-offs. Now, I am catching some dock fish as well in that 8 to 15 foot. But the dock fish is kind of like everything else. I'm just kind of hitting key docks where I can usually catch fish. And sometimes you'll go quite a while without a bite. You'll have to fish several stalls and several docks. But I'm having to get in the stalls underneath the lifts. And there I'm throwing 7/16 ounce ultimate finesse jig. And kind of throwing a variety of colors. This is a PBJ. Brown and purple always works good. And just a straight brown as well. And if you notice all of these, I've got a baby Rage Craw for a trailer. But I think any little twin tail will work, like a twin tail chomper, the Zoom Speed Craw. Around the docks, I like to keep a little bit smaller profile bait, more compact bait. On the spinnerbait colors, just like with them jigs, anything that's got a little purple on it's kind of hard to beat on table rock. This one is a War Eagle. It's a purple shad, I think is what it's called. It's got a few strands of chartreuse. I think the only place you can get this spinnerbait here is probably Sportsman Factory Outlet or Extreme Outdoor should have some as well. It's kind of the normal purple shad doesn't have any chartreuse in it. This one's just got a few strands of chartreuse, which I think makes a big difference because there's still a lot of bluegill up there shallow. I still wouldn't rule out a whopper plopper. As that water cools down, more fish should start to move back into the creeks. But for me, anyways, it's kind of been a multiple deal. I've got to fish a lot of different baits, and don't be afraid to change up and cover a lot of water. Till next week, good luck, good fishing.